Joining me now, Tracy Walder, NewsNation national security contributor and former CIA officer and FBI special agent. Tracy, you went through many of these vetting processes. Do you have a clear idea of how somebody with this type of background and some of the information revealed in court documents would be able to slip through the cracks?
Well, thank you for having me, Marni. Really, I think that this process started right from the beginning with him. I don't know if it's a top-down sort of approach. I think it was a bottom-up situation. I went through this vetting process really at the same age that Teixeira is. I started mine at 19 or 20 and then was granted my security clearance about a year later. I think that this probably happened when he filled out something called the SF-86, which is something that really everyone in the military, government, anyone who's up for a clearance, a top secret security clearance, would fill out. It's well over 120 pages. It's very cumbersome and takes a lot of time. And I've seen reporting that Teixeira admitted that he talked about those suspensions from high school and what they were for. However, those were never followed up on. And that is problematic, in my opinion, because those should have mitigated him from ever receiving a top secret clearance.
And whose job is it to follow up on that? We know 2 commanders have been suspended.
So it's actually not the commander's job to follow up on that. It is their job to make sure that material is secure in the workspaces. So I do think that was problematic. But that would have been the background investigator. Typically, that comes from the Office of Personnel Management, or OPM. And that would have been that person's responsibility to follow up on those violent threats that he made. I mean, he was talking about potentially shooting up his high school, Molotov cocktails at his high school. And those really should have been a non-starter. His process should have been terminated right then and there, but he was allowed to continue on.
And there are other steps in the vetting process. So what are some of the other questions and series of interviews and polygraphs that someone like this gaining security clearance would have to go through?
Sure, that's an excellent question. So first, obviously, they would have started at that SF-86. Once they made it past that, their social media would have probably been given a cursory glance, but you are not asked to give up things like passwords and those kinds of things. There's privacy surrounding that, and deep dives really aren't done other than what's kind of out-facing to the public. Then he would have undergone some academic testing, psychological testing. Then he would have had a polygraph, and that's pretty rigorous. That can take up to 8 to 10 hours. And then after that, a background investigator would have come to his home, his friend network, and his family network. After that is when he would have been granted the security clearance. So there were about 3 or 4 steps in between there that perhaps could have caught this.
And it's a rigorous process, right? At some point, they're also given an explanation. They're told that you apply to an oath, right? There's a code of ethics involved in this type of job.
Right. So, my first day at CIA, you do take an oath to the government to uphold our Constitution and also to protect our national security. And he also would have taken that oath. And so obviously his actions are in violation of that. And I mean, that's pretty cut and dried to me. He absolutely violated that oath.
What type of oversight would an employee, Tracy, in his position have once he gets the job and then qualifies for the position after this vetting process?
That's an excellent question, too. So really, reports have come out that he was searching on his work computer, Uvalde, Ruby Ridge, Waco, school shootings. That then would have actually alerted security to then stop and sort of do a sweep of what he was doing and what he was searching. That should have alerted security, and I'm very surprised. Maybe it did. They investigated and found nothing to it. I don't know the specifics of that, but that is a stopgap that is in place. Also, I've noticed, and we don't have confirmation on this, but some of the documents were printed out and kind of crumpled. He shouldn't have been able to print out documents. If you work in a sensitive compartmented information facility, you do not have access to a printer. And so that's problematic as well. So those are 2 stopgaps I see that should have been put into place.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.